Ya sabes que estas cosas siempre al principio acaban fallando, ¿no? Como no puede ser de otra manera.
Tecnología, ya sabes.
Pero bueno, tranquilo que ya a priori parece que está funcionando. A ver, vamos a YouTube acá.
No tenemos ninguna conexión por Slack, ¿verdad? Entonces, cualquier cosa tengo abierto, bueno, tengo Slack y Twitter en la
Ya
otra
sabes que estas
ventana.
cosas siempre al principio acaban fallando, ¿no?
Ok.
Como no puede ser de otra manera. Pues mira, parece que tenemos ya emisión. Perfecto. Ok. A ver si me he equivocado, creo que no. Ajá. Bueno, pues creo que estamos live. I think we can switch to English. Basically because I think we are already live in YouTube. Yeah. So first of all, I have to say that I think I'm missing something really important, which is basically to share the link with all the people. So I will basically try to share that via Twitter, and then I think we can continue. So first of all, I have to say thank you very much for all the people that are joining us. We are here. Let me try to make this better. So hello Andres, we are in YouTube. Thank you Andres for having us being with us today, and let's hope that many people will join the session. So yeah, I will basically try to explain a little bit what is the community and so on, if you don't mind, Andres, and then we will continue with your session.
Sure, of course. Let's give some time for people to join up on the session,
Yeah,
and then
yeah,
we're beginning.
yeah. Also, all the people I think they know already what we normally do in terms of what is the community and what we do, etc. So it's nothing really fancy, let's say. So I will try to be wasting time for the people that already know us, and because 5 minutes is more or less the time that people already arrive later. I think we can try to I can try to steal these 5 minutes. So let me see if I can share my screen. Okay, so now it's supposed to happen that in YouTube people will see my presentation. I don't know if you Andres can see this, but probably it is not something. I don't know how to make it on Hangout now. Let me see. Where's the share screen here?
It's on the top right.
Here,
You should
right.
see
Yeah,
icons.
yeah. So basically, I
Yeah,
think now you can see my screen, right?
correct.
Yep. So basically, what we normally do is, as I said, is basically explain what the community is and what we do, and then I will basically explain you. Well, basically, I pass the message to you. So as many people know, we are basically a bunch of people that are, let's say, interested in technology, and basically we been creating a lot of things, a lot of events, and we are basically a non-profit organization since 7 years now. Wow, 7 years ago, and we are people that are basically curious around the technologies. That's more or less what we like. And yeah, basically what we do is we try to gather. Well, we try to keep people growing in terms of technologies, and we try to evaluate and share a lot of things, just to few things related with Java, not only with Java. We are also, let's say, uh, technology fans of many different things, and we use many technologies day to day, and that's why we try to grow in many different areas. And yeah, you can join us, let's say, with many different social networks. We have, I don't know, Slack, we have Twitter, we have YouTube, where many people will join us, I hope. And we can basically, we will also happy to receive many people from many places and ask to many questions. So please join us in one of these social networks. So regarding the events that we normally did in the past, we have many. All of them are related with Java, but there are a lot that they are not only related with Java, and we are really happy to connect with many other people. So yes, another important event that we organized in the past is a big conference called JVC Conf. I hope that many of you know that conference, but the idea is that we gathered 740 people last year. We hope that this year we will gather, let's say, even more. And it was, I think, a really great event where people joined it. I don't know, a really fancy moment where we gather a lot of interesting speakers from around the world and many different topics around JVPM and all the Java technologies. So yeah, this is basically a bunch of images that we gather related with the previous conference. And yes, for the next events, we've been in contact with many people. One of them is Uriel, which is one of the people that are here in Barcelona, and the other one is Venkat, that we've been in contact with him, and we will see if we can try to make the event happen. And yes, for sure, the next event will be the JVC Conf, that basically we have rescheduled, and now it will not happen in July. We moved to September, so if you didn't have your tickets, it's probably the time to have a look. And I think it's pretty much what we have to share right now. If you are interested, please join us. I think it's really interesting to join a community, so why not this one? And at the end, we will try to make a Kahoot. That will be really funny, I think, for see if we get all the information that Andres has to share with us. And yeah, you can join this Slido basically to ask any questions that you might have to Andres. Yep, pretty much. I'm basically really happy to invite Andres to join this event, and basically he's a Java champion and a Groovy developer, and well, basically he has a huge amount of experience working with Java and with Groovy, and he's basically one of the most famous, I would say, Maven and Groovy developers. So pretty much, Andres, I think is what I have to say. So thank you very much, and up to you.
Thank you very much for that, Nacho. It's very interesting to see how the Barcelona Java community has grown in the past years. And I will ask you, before we actually get into the presentation, could you show again the link for the Slido?
Yeah, sure.
So that people get the links, the questions. I think it was very fast.
Yep, sure. This is already, I think, in the streaming, so people can see it. Yeah.
Perfect. Excellent. All right. So now let's get started with the presentation. Because hopefully, first I need to share the screen. And I'm gonna share my. You're gonna see Nacho again. Woohoo! Hello. And here we go. So the slides should be showing right now. Great. So as you saw in the invitation for this event, the topic of today is what I wish I knew about Maven years ago. Now, so what the idea of this session is based on my experiences as someone that has gone through a different set of tools since the early days. So I know Java since 1995, since it came out. So that's gonna give you an idea how old I am. And so the journey that I have had in the Java ecosystem has led me to experience a lot of different projects in the open source. So I like to call myself now a seasoned sourcer, just because I like to work with source. And I work for Oracle nowadays. I'm a Java champion. I'm the co-founder of an initiative called Aggregating, where it's basically a group of people that, like yourselves, that come afterwards, after their daily work, and work on an open source project for a couple of hours, and we enjoy pizza, beers, snacks, and we make the world a better place, one commute at a time. Okay. So I mentioned that I'm comfortable with a series of tools in the past, and so in the beginning, in the early days of Java, well, we only had the compiler, and then people tried to compile different versions of Java for different platforms, or compile the application for different platforms. And the first tool that they had at close hand was Make, because, well, it was very popular. It still is very popular for C and C++. And then a new project emerged, which is Apache Ant. Basically, this really gave us the ability to have cross-platform builds for different applications or projects, and it requires a lot of XML. Now, there are people that like this tool and some others that really hate it, and not just because of the XML, it's just because you have so much freedom. You can create so many things with it, and it's very difficult to have a similar structure from going from one project to the next. And this is the reason why a few years later, the Maven project came. So Maven 1, then later Maven 2, and finally Maven 3 some years ago. And Maven has evolved by adding more features that Ant didn't have, such as dependency resolution, a common application structure, a much saner way to define plugins, and object model, and a few other things. But it's not without some faults. And close to, I think it was 11 or 12 years ago, actually 12 years ago, there's another project that came out, it's called Gradle. And then Gradle, the idea is that they wanted to have some of the benefits of Maven, but apply different constraints and different ideas. So the object model is also one thing that they wanted to have in a different way. And they chose to not use XML at the time, use a full programming language like Ruby to give you all the advantages. And while some of the things that you can see with Gradle are really great, some other people complain that because you can write anything you want in the build file, it's so easy to get it wrong that you're back to the worst days of Ant, but it's because it's not XML, not it's a DSL. There are so many things going around, whether it's true or not. The point is there are people that are happy and there are people that are angry about all these tools. So after spending so much time with each one of them, I decided to come back and review what I knew from the previous experiments and see if there's anything that I learned from Gradle and Ant that can be applied to Maven. Was there something that was missing from Maven that would have made my life as a developer much easier if I knew that those features existed? Some of these features you may already know. So I'm based this presentation in that there are some of you that are highly experienced with Maven and some others of you that are only learning Maven for the first time. So I will ask you, if you have any questions, please let me know, and probably Nacho will let me know immediately when something happens, if there is some sort of, through a Slido.
Sure.
And so I'll try to answer this question as fast as possible. If not, we will still have some time at the end of the session to do this. So the first one is that, well, you can override project properties. And what do I mean by project properties? You probably have seen that you can define properties in your POM file inside a properties block. But properties can also be provided by plugins. Regardless of how these properties have been defined, you can override the value if you match the key. And you do this by defining the -p, no, it's not -p, it's -d flag. Sorry, that was a typo. -d key equals value when you pass it in the command line. See, that's the things that tells you that I'm still using Gradle in some way, because in Gradle you pass a property with P, whereas in Maven you use P for profile. So be really, really sure that this is a -d. Okay, so let me show you a quick demo of what I mean by this. So I'm going to jump into the terminal, and hopefully you're going to see the terminal very quickly right here. So I have a project. I'm going to show you the point. I'm probably going to make it a little bit bigger so it looks better in the video. Right.
Yeah.
So I have this POM file. That is very basic. It only contains the Maven coordinates that we usually call these the GAP coordinates. GAP stands for Group ID, Artifact ID, and Version. And it defines a single dependency just because I need it for compilation. And this particular source code that I have, I believe, is here. It's a simple application. What this application does is capitalize the text and then print it out. It's nothing really that groundbreaking. Now, the version of Java that I have installed, if I'm not mistaken, is version 8. So that's actually 1.8 update 191. And the version of Maven that I have, it's 3.6.3, I believe. That's that version. And when you run that, Maven will tell you which version of Maven it is and also which version of Java. So those two do match. Perfect. So the next thing that I'm going to do is compile this project. And remember that I have Java 8, right? So I will expect that the compiled class bytecode also matches Java 8. How can I know that? So I just decompile the class. So we can do Java P minus very for verbose, target classes, acme sample, and let's see the first 10 lines. And turns out that the major version is number 49. Now, I don't know about you, but if you recall what number 49 it matches with Java, that's actually Java 5. What's going on? So, as it turns out, most of the behavior that you get out of the box from Maven comes because you have inherited the default configuration. In this case, it's coming from something that we like to call the super POM. The super POM matches your particular Maven version, and this is an artifact that the Maven team has under syscontrol. One of the things that it does is set up the default configuration, and that default configuration for us right now happens to be that the target and the source version of Java is Java 5. So how do we change this? We have a few options. We could configure the Maven compiler plugin in the POM file and fix the whole block. Or we can configure properties, just the properties that the Maven compiler is expecting in a properties block. Or if we want to do a quick check if that's actually what's going to work, we pass in on the command line. So how would you do that? I believe what we can do is Maven. Let's do a clean just in case. And now we say -d, Maven, compiler, source, typo 1.8. And then -d, Maven, compiler, target equals 1.8. Run the build, decompile the class again. And notice that this time, the major version happens to be 52. This is actually version 8 of Java. So this is working. Now I'm able to do this because those two flags, those two properties that I have already in the command line have been exposed by the Maven compiler plugin. So if you were to look at the documentation of the plugin, most of them will expose the properties and will document the values and the default values and the reasons why those properties exist. So you may be able to override them directly in the command line or use the properties block or define everything in the plugins block. It's up to you. Let's go back to the presentation. Okay. The next thing is you can invoke any plugin that is available in a Maven repository in any project that you see fit. Now, this is something that I was missing from the other projects, from the other build tools, is that if I'm testing a plugin and I don't want to change my POM file, or for some reason the plugin goal that I need to run should not be applied to the POM file, specifically that I'm targeting, maybe some sort of experiment again, then I have no choice. But because Maven allows me to do this, then it's very easy to test. So basically, this feature allows you to invoke any plugin at any time on any single project. For example, where it is written right here on the slide, I am configuring or actually invoking the echo plugin. I have to specify the full coordinates, the group ID, the artifact ID, and the version. plus the goal that I need to invoke. In this case is echo. How do you know the goal name? Well, you look at the plugin's configuration. And then I pass a property, echo.message, which is also one of those properties exposed by the plugin. Let's go back to the terminal. And this is, again, the same project that we had before. The POM remains unchanged. We know we have a main class. I can invoke the following command. You probably know this. Such as compile the project, then invoke the execute Java plugin, and then pass a parameter, in this case overriding a property, exec main class. Now you may be thinking, how is it going to work? Because I already mentioned that you need the full gap coordinates. Well, here's the same command using the full gap coordinates. Now, the reason why this might work is that plugins that end with Maven plugin as a suffix are special. These are known close to be as core plugins. So Maven understands with the coordinates for these artifacts, these plugins, and you can use the show notation. So either of these two commands will give me the same result. And I can verify that by saying cat command 1 and pass it to a shell. And we should see hello world right there. Now I'm going to clean. Oh, that's not the right command. To Maven clean. And I'm going to cat the second command and invoke it. It results in hello world, so it's giving me the same result. Now, what about the echo command or the echo plugin? So let's look at this other plugin. This command says I'm going to invoke Maven using the gap coordinates for the echo plugin, invoking the echo goal with some message. And the message should be hello world from the echo plugin. So let's invoke that. Let's cat that and pass it to a shell. You notice that it downloads the echo plugin jar. This is because I did not have it before on my local Maven repository. So Maven figures out, oh, you pass me some coordinates. I check the repositories that I have configured. I don't have it in any of those, so we'll download those artifacts that are needed. And finally, execute the goal. In this case, is the echo goal. If I were to run this command again, like this, you'll notice that there is no longer an additional download because the artifacts already reside on the local Maven repository. It only needs to invoke the goal. And I can pass as many values as I want for this echo message parameter property, and it will just do what you want. So, and this will work for any plugin out there that can receive configuration via properties. All right. So that was the demo. Next one, dependency resolution.
This is a funny one, right?
This is a funny one because remember one of the reasons why we have Maven is to be able to cope with dependency resolution. Before we had this, you had to rely on downloading jars on your own, placing them on a specific directory, loading them into a class path, and making sure that everything is working correctly. And if there was any update, you will have to manually look for those updates and do everything for by hand. And that was tiresome, troublesome, and error-prone. I'm not saying that the dependency resolution has no errors and doesn't bring other things, but it's much better than what we had in the past. So we have to take that in mind. So dependencies in Maven, they have to be defined in the dependencies block. And these are known as direct dependencies. For any direct dependency that you have defined, those dependencies or jars or artifacts may have additional dependencies. From the point of view of your project, the consumer project, those additional dependencies are known as transitive dependencies. Now, there's a key distinction between direct and transitive. And regardless of they are direct or transitive, Maven resolves dependencies by locality. And whatever is nearest or closest to the current POM that you're working on is going to win. If you have a direct dependency on your current POM, then that dependency wins. And the last one you define, if there are duplicates, the last one is going to win. I'm going to talk about that in just a moment. If it's not found in your POM, then it will go up the parent hierarchy all the way to the parent POM to see if there are any directs defined in that hierarchy. If there are any, that one will be selected. If there are no direct dependencies, then it's going to figure out if there are any transitives. And here the rules are slightly different because it's not the last one that wins, it's the closest one. So if you have two transitive dependencies and one takes two hops to reach it, and the other takes 5 hops to reach it, then the one that has 2 hops is going to win. And if that happens to be one that has a lower version number than the one that takes 5 hops, then it doesn't matter. The one that has 2 hops is going to win. And that's also something that we'll see in just a moment. So a couple of weeks ago, I ran a quiz. And I had 509 people answering the quiz, and it produced some interesting results. So I'm going to show you just 2 questions of this particular quiz. One that has to do with duplicate dependencies. So this was the first question, and this is what it asked. Given this POM, what if I were to ask Maven, what is the selected version of Guava? So what is the result version of Guava? Which number or which answer do you think is going to be? Is it going to be 27 because that's the first version of Guava that is defined right there? Or is it going to be 28 because of the latest? Or is it going to be a build error? This turned out to be a tricky one because 36% of people said, duplicate dependencies, this clearly should be an error. Well, guess what? It's not. When you run the dependency tree plugin through Maven, there will be a warning stating that there are 2 versions for the same group and an artifact ID, right? So this is probably an error in the POM file, but the build will continue. And the selected version is actually the latest one that you have defined in the POM file. So it's 28.2 JRE. Aha. So here's another one. This is with transitive dependencies. You have Google Juice and Google Truth. Both of them have a dependency in Google Guava. So from the point of view of the base project, this consumer project, Guava is a transitive dependency. And each one of these, how we reach to Guava is through one hop, either through Juice or for Truth. So they are the same level. But Juice depends on version 25, and Truth depends on version 27. So who is going to win? Or is it going to be a build error? Well, so it happens, the version that wins is 25, and that is because it was the first that was found on the tree. Don't believe me? Let's have a look quickly. Let's go back to the terminal, and now we go into another project called Transitive 1, and let's show the POM. This POM says there is Juice first and Truth second, correct? Nothing more. Let's do Maven dependency tree. And this will tell me that the chosen version of Guava happens to be 25 Android. So this is the one coming from Juice. Now let's move into another project. This has to be, there's a different command. So cd transitive 2. Let's look at the POM file. This POM file, the only difference is that it has Truth first and Juice second. Okay? So we invoke Maven dependency tree, and we get as a result that the version of Guava that is selected is 27, the one from Truth, again, because it was found first in the hierarchy. All right. What's going on here?
When you say, just one question. When you say first, Andres, is because it's the first declared in the Maven file, or is because it's the first getting by the tree dependency?
When I say first, it's because that's it's the position in the dependency tree.
Okay.
Right, and it was there because when Maven passed the POM file, it encountered Truth first and then put it in the dependency tree, and then encountered Juice second, and then try to resolve these dependencies and put it in the dependency tree.
Okay, thank you.
So, semantic versioning. As it turns out, so you might know Robert Schulte, he is the PMC chair for Maven. And so he and many others know definitely how Maven works. And he said, and this is true, Maven never looks at the version we're resolving a dependency. We as humans, we as developers, well, we understand, or we think we understand what semantic versioning is, and we expect our tools to also do the same. But in the case of Maven, it does not on its own. Core Maven does not follow semantic versioning rules when resolving dependencies. But there is a plugin out there called the Enforcer plugin that if you apply certain rules, it can give you those capabilities. So it's something extra that you have to configure in your projects, but you can get that behavior. Or here's another way that you can solve this issue. You apply the dependency management block. The dependency management block functions like a lookup table. So when it simply says, I'm going to store this information, given a group ID and an artifact ID, here's the matching version. Whenever Maven attempts to resolve the dependency tree, when it looks at the dependencies, and if there's one that matches group ID and artifact ID in the lookup table, then it's going to pick up that particular version. So in this case, it doesn't matter in which order we define truth or juice. It doesn't matter that true depends on Google Guava 27 and juice depends on Guava 25. When I do a resolution on the tree, the chosen version of Guava is going to be version 28. Now this is quite cool because we can add as many values or many group IDs or gaps into the dependency management block, and it doesn't matter how many hubs we need to reach to that particular, we have to go to reach that particular dependency. The lookup table is always going to work. So it's not just for transitives on the first level, it's also for the second, for the third, for the nth level. And this will work also for parent POMs as well. So you can put the dependency management block here, you can put it on your parent, you can put it pretty much anywhere you want to. I mentioned the Enforcer plugin, and it has one goal that you should care about, which is the enforced goal. And there are a bunch of rules that you can use, that you can configure to have semantic versioning, to ban duplicate classes, to enforce minimum versions of Maven or convergence of certain properties. There are many things that you can do, and I love the fact that the Maven enforcing plugin is the iron fist of Maven, because it will immediately scream at you in something that's not working properly. And I also did a quick poll on Twitter, and it turns out that not that many people that use Maven, at least for the 346 people that actually use Maven, they are either do not configure the Enforcer plugin, or they have no idea what the Enforcer plugin is. So it's definitely something that we need to fix, because the Enforcer plugin is, I personally believe, is something that should belong to core. Hopefully, we may be able to see some of that behavior coming in a future major release of Maven. Here are some interesting results of the quiz that I ran. So this is the distribution of all the correct answers. And the median and the average of the results is around 8 correct answers. And we had people that knew Maven for a long, long time. We had people that knew Maven a little bit, and some others that, well, they said, well, what's difficult about Maven? It's just XML. What's the problem? Well, it turns out that only 7 people got 14 correct answers. The quiz was actually divided in 3 sections. The first section was questions on just a single project. The second section when I added a parent project. And the third section when a BOM project was added. Now the first question that you see, the Q1, only 36% of the people got it right. Because the other 36 people thought that has to be a build error. And question number 5, which is the one that I showed you about the transitive dependencies, only 44 people got it right. Turns out that based on the standard deviation of each one of the sections, the third section is the one that is less understood by developers, at least the ones that fill out the survey. And the last graph that you see there is the percentages of people that chose the build error option. As it happens, none of the answers on this quiz were build errors. So if everybody knew Maven in a good portion, then these percentages should have been very low. But they weren't. So that's something that I'll be looking at now, how to fix this. If you continue to struggle with dependency resolutions, then I will highly encourage you to have a look at this presentation by Robert Schulte and Ray Zhang. The link that is posted there is for both the video and the slides that will allow you to understand why the Maven Enforcer plugin is good to have in your builds and what other problems you might encounter with dependency resolution that the Enforcer plugin alone will not be able to solve. So definitely have a look at this one. How are we doing so far? Any questions?
Hey Andres, we have a few questions already, but let me see. So there are more related with a general overview about Maven, and I think this one is one of the famous ones, I think, because the people are asking about, is there any plans for get rid of the XML files in future versions?
Well, there's no need to do that. The reason being is that since Maven 3 came out, I think it was close to 8 or 9 years ago, there's this project called Polyglot Maven. It lets you write build files in Groovy or Ruby, or I think even YAML, JSON, if you want to. Except that you still need to publish a POM file that has to be XML. Now, I've been debating myself if using XML is a good idea or a bad idea. And after spending 12 years with Gradle, and I have to mention that I am a member of the Groovy development team, so I love Groovy, I have a passion for it. It's very easy for you to shoot yourself in the foot if you use a full programming language. So, and then you're thinking, oh, Groovy is bad because dynamic. Let's use a static compiler language like Kotlin. You are in the same problem. It's not the language itself, it's the use of the language. If as long as it's a full programming language and you allow your users to have full access to the programming language, then it's very easy to shoot yourself in the foot. You may be able to do stuff that you shouldn't be doing, but yet it will be available to you because of the nature of the language. XML in this case turns out to be a boon because it restricts you to only a few things that you're able to do. But I grant you, it's verbose, it's repetitive. Can we do something better? Perhaps. Hopefully it won't be YAML, but we'll see.
Okay, there are 2 more questions. I don't know if you want to answer now, but basically, well, this is not probably a comment that people are already, they know already some properties like how to skip test, right? It's probably one of the most frequent one. And the other thing is probably, this is more an interesting question related with, is there any way that we can get a list of all the resolved values for all the properties, like a CLI or all the different profiles or these kind of things?
Of the resolved values, well, probably you might be thinking of the effective POM. So let's look at this transitive. Let's go back to the terminal. And I can invoke one command called help effective POM. And let's pass it through less. And I get this. There are the gap coordinates of my project. So it's transitive 2, and then we got the 2 dependencies, but we also got the link to the central repository, which is always enabled, plugin repositories for where the default Maven plugins are downloaded, the values for the source directory, test directory. So this is something that is always there. And where is this information coming from? Okay. This is coming from the Resolve Super POM. And here are the other plugins that always apply. So there's a clean plugin, and sometimes we will find somewhere there is the jar resources, there's a compiler plugin. So you always have access to this. And if you were to have parent plugin projects in your POM, then everything will get combined into one single thing called the effective POM. And by the way, I believe through the effective POM is where many of the IDEs, doesn't matter which one you picked, this is the thing that they use to hook into the Maven lifecycle and be able to resolve everything that needs to be resolved so that you can have better support for Maven.
Nice. Nice. I think it's more or less what the people were asking about, getting all the properties. So yeah.
This one will give you the result values. If you want to know what are the keys of the properties, you still have to go through the, I think the easiest way is to go to the plugins page. And there's all the Maven plugins have very good documentation, at least in terms of what properties you can apply.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Sure. Keep those questions coming.
Yeah.
So here's the next thing is that I have to call it like it is. Maven clean install is a cargo code. What is a cargo code? It's something that we do just because we were told we should do it, but we don't understand why we need to do it. So the first rule of the Maven Club is you do not invoke Maven clean install. The second rule of Maven Club is you definitely do not invoke Maven clean install. The third rule of Maven Club is Maven verify, or as I like to say, Maven verify gives you rainbows in your build. So what's going on here? So Maven verify is one of those goals that you can invoke at any time in your project. Now, your project, if it's a single project, well, actually, let's talk about the, it makes more sense when we talk about multiple projects within a multi-build. When Maven 2 was released, it only supported building single projects, same way as its end. But of course, projects grew in complexity and multiple projects like siblings or different levels were added. And in order to support this, a third-party plugin was created, which was called the Reactor Maven plugin. And this feature was so good that the Maven developers decided to add it to Maven Core in Maven 3. So when the Maven Reactor plugin existed, you had to invoke Maven clean install all the time. Why? Because being a third-party plugin, the behavior that was needed for others to be aware of if there were any intermediate artifacts that can be consumed was not yet in place. But once this behavior was added in core in Maven 3, then there is no longer a need to do invocations of Maven clean install. Maven verify is just enough. Invoking the install goal is needed only if you need to publish artifacts to a local repository. Not because you want to run the test, not because you want to check out if your project works. For that, it's just verify. Invoking clean also diminishes the reuse of intermediate results. Plugins nowadays are much better at understanding if the compile task has finished and it didn't do any work. Well, do I need to repackage something, or do I need to reprocess resources, or I need to do something extra? Now, granted, not all plugins play well with the rules, but most of them do. If you call clean, then you remove those intermediate results, and then you have to start your build over again, and that makes your build slower. If you'd like to know more about the reasons why clean install is not a good idea, here's another great talk by Robert from DevOps last year, November. There's the link to the videos right there. And she actually created a really nice and funny extension called the Maven Clean extension. And it records whenever you invoke Maven clean install on the command line. The first time it will tell you, if it wasn't needed, so say, for example, you just wanted to compile a class, but you do clean install. And they will tell you, that shouldn't be done, but okay, I'll let it pass. But the next time you invoke Maven clean install and you actually didn't need it, then it's going to turn out to be a build failure. And they will tell you immediately, you shouldn't be doing this. Fun times. Those are things that you can do with Maven. You can enhance the life cycle. Mm-hmm. Here's another thing that I learned by multi-project builds. Maven-am-pl. And this, I like to call it partial execution. So when you have a reactor, when you have multiple projects in a single multi-project build, everything runs inside a reactor. When you do Maven verify or invoke any build goal on the reactor, every single goal is going to be invoked for every single project. So if you do Maven verify in a reactor that contains 50 projects, then verify is going to be invoked 50 times. If you make a change in one of those projects and say that that project has 3 other dependencies in 3 other projects that are dependent on it, you actually just need to check the root project the 3 dependencies and the project you're interested in. That means it's only 5 of them. Is there a way that I can just invoke verify on those 5 projects instead of the 50? Yes, and we use it, we do it by invoking -am-pl. PL stands for project list, and you pass a path of projects. And -am stands for also make. So this will make all the dependencies that are required for the projects that are listed on PL. So how do we do this? Let's change into the terminal once again. And let's go into partial C1. So let me show you the following thing. Let's look first. Let's make sure that I'm not doing anything here. Let's do a clean. I'll show you the structure. There is a root project right here. This is the basis of our build, and we have project 1, project 2, project 3, and project 4. The root of our build looks like this. This is simply a project that contains 4 modules, project 1, 2, and 3, as we saw earlier. Project 1 looks like this, has a parent, and it has just a name, project ID, project 1. Project 2 also has the same parent and has a dependency on project 1. Project 3 has the same parent, has a dependency on project 2. And project 4 only has the same parent. It doesn't have any dependencies. So if I were to make a change in project 3 or project 2, and I want to build only project 3 or project 2, how to do this? Because if I need to know how to do this, I will just simply do Maven verify, right? Mm-hmm. And let's see what happens. The reactor contains 5 projects. And that invokes verify on project 1, which goes through all the phases that are needed. Then project 2, which invokes resources, compile, test, and jar. Then project 3, same deal. And project 4, same deal. And eventually the reactor summary. If I were to just do the thing with project 3, let's see. I can go into project 3 and simply say, oh, let's do a clean, which I believe I can. Yes. Now let's do a Maven verify. And I hope that this is going to work, but it does not. Why? Because it's missing project 2. Project 2 was never built. It's not installed on any local repository. This is a failure. So how do I fix this? Well, Maven-pl, give it the path of the project that I want, project 3, but also give it the -am, that means also make my dependencies, whoever they may be, and then say verify, because this is what I want to invoke in project 3. So what's going to happen? Whoop. I think I have to be 1 level up. Let's do it again. Yeah, I think this is well, let me do it the other way like this, just to be sure. I think this is also the way that I do it. Now let's see. Okay, now it's working. So the reactor now shows 4 projects, not 5 in total. And it builds 1, builds 2, and then builds 3. And this is what we were expecting. Let's go back to the slides. Except there is a catch. Because you might remember that I mentioned that every goal that you invoke is going to, that you define, is going to be invoked on every single project, isn't it? And when project 3 actually contains an executable. So if I wanted to run the exec Java plugin on it, we might get a problem. In order to get around this, you will have to define additional plugins in all projects. And the easiest way to do this will be using the plugin management block in the root or in all the parents, because you may have different parents in all your builds. Typically, the case is that you have the same parent, but you might not. So let me show you what I mean by this. Let's go back to the terminal, and I'm going to go to partial number 2. The root file now looks different. It looks like this. We have two properties exposed by the exec Maven plugin, skip and main class. So I give the default value for a skip is yes, I'm not going to invoke the exec plugin. And the main class, I just put any giver sheet. Actually, you can put any value. It doesn't matter what value it is. I just want something that is non-null. Otherwise, that would cause a problem. Then in the plugin management block, I define the exec Maven plugin. And then I also automatically apply it. So in this way, the root and every child that uses the inheritance from this parent will also have the exec Maven plugin. So when I look at the POM from project 1, it looks pretty much the same. For project 2, it's exactly the same. For project 3, there will be a difference because we need to activate this exec plugin, but also we need to tell it which is the main class. I could pass it on the command line because I know that this is something that is fixed, then it's better to put it in the POM file. And here we activate explicitly the exec Maven plugin by saying, I'm not going to skip it. So once this is done, I can do the following. Maven ampl project 3 exec Java. Oh, we probably need to do compile just in case that I didn't do it before. And what's going to happen is that we get a reactor of 4 projects. Exec is skipped on build, and this is skipped on project 1. This is project 2, it's also skipped. And in project 3, it's actually invoked. If we were not to add this, if I were to go to partial 1, remember that this one doesn't have the exec command anywhere, and we know that we can invoke this plugin anywhere because it can be resolved. This will actually turn out to be an error because there is no main class. But if we define the main class, exec main class equals com acme sample, or actually no, it's com acme main, like this. What happens is that the build should fail because the build project, the root, attempted to run exec, and of course it doesn't know what to do. It doesn't have that class because the root project has no classes at all, has no sources. So this is what I meant, that every call is going to be invoked for every project they call in the reactor, whether it's a full reactor or whether it's a partial reactor. All right, Next one is aggregating POMs. And these basically are POMs that contains a models section. Every model inside the model section corresponds to a path. It's not a name, but the convention is that we laid out our projects in the next level down. So the name of the directory matches the name of the project. So that means that the name and the path of the project are a match. But you could have nested levels as many as you want. When you do this, you will have to add an additional parameter in the parent section in order to locate the POM. You don't do this because you typically don't see this because we have, again, just one level down all the projects. So that's a convenience. Even though many parent POMs contain a model definition, that does not mean you always have to have them. So take, for example, this structure. The POM file at the top is just an aggregator POM that looks like this. It has any name you want and has defines 2 modules that happen to be in the first level down. Base and POM and BOM have no relationship to one another. So this could be, base could be your project, whatever application you're working on, and you happen to encounter a problem with common slang. There is a bug. How would you typically fix this problem? Well, you probably download a version of the latest version of common slang, and then it will probably be in the snapshot release. Then you go into your application and configure the snapshot release, go back to common slang, fix the problem, do clean install. In this case, you really want it because you need to push that artifact to the repository, and then go back to your application and test it. You see, oh, it's not yet fixed. And you continue going back and forth, doing clean install and going back and forth with this, and that gets tiresome. But if I were to put an aggregator like this, and then just run the build from the point of view of base or your application, now that you know you can use -am-pl, and because they are connected to this aggregator POM, you no longer need to do clean install on common slang. It will be part of the same reactor. And that's the beauty of it. We can skip that demo because now I'm going to show you BOMs because I'm almost running out of time. But I guess we can spend a few more minutes on this. So BOMs, I would say fairly recent, some years ago, and we have seen some popular frameworks out there making use of them nowadays. So if you're into microservices, and it doesn't matter what it is, whether it's a Spring Boot, or Micronaut, Quarkus, Helidon, whether you're using native, whatever it is, you likely have encountered a BOM file before. BOM files looks like this. They contain the gap coordinates. The packaging has to be of type POM, and they have a section for dependency management. The idea is that they define a set of dependencies that go together. Now, for reasons of a simple example, this particular BOM, it could have any name, but I decided to use BOM, is packaging only Guava. But in theory, they should pack more than one dependency. And I consume this BOM in this way. So this is my consumer project or base project. I define the dependency management block that I want to import the BOM file. It's very, very important that you define not just the gap coordinates for the BOM file, but also define the scope to be imported and the type of dependency to be POM. The type of the dependency is mapped to the extension of the file. If you miss using the type, then Maven will interpret this dependency to be of type jar by default. And of course, you won't publish a jar file for a BOM file. And that will, of course, result in an error during dependency resolution. So what happens here is once the BOM gets downloaded, all the dependencies that are provided by that BOM file get loaded into the lookup table because we know dependency management works like a lookup table. So now that I have that information ready in the lookup table, I can just apply any dependency that I want. I know for a fact that that BOM provides Guava, so I just need to provide the group ID and the artifact ID, and the version is going to be provided by the lookup table. If the BOM were to provide more dependencies, then I can just apply them as just using the group ID and the artifact ID. Okay, so is this all? For now, yes. So one of the things that actually surprised me the most after using Gradle for so long is that I can invoke any goal from any project that I want to, and only invokes the goal for that project, but the project will also build all the dependencies that are needed. This is attainable with Maven using the -am-pl. The caveat is that every goal is going to be invoked also for every sub-project. So you have to be sure that you configure those additional plugins using the plugin management on the build. Also that, well, you can override properties at any point in time. And the aggregator POM, the fact that aggregators do not have to be always parents is also a deal breaker. Gradle provides a feature called composite builds, which allows you to connect separate projects that could go together for a temporary moment, which is exactly the case that I described with your application and Commons Lang. You can put an aggregator POM and fix the problem, and then you just commit your application and send the patch to the people from Commons Lang, and you're done. You don't have to do more stuff like that. So I mentioned earlier that I work for Oracle, so this is how you tell I can actually work for Oracle. So anything that I have said that might affect your interest in getting into Oracle products, you're safe, don't trust me. So with this, if you have any questions, I will be very, very happy to take them.
Thank you very much. First of all, Andres, it was really interesting, your presentation. We have few questions here, so let me see if I can go and recap some of them. So,
okay.
Yeah, so first of all, the people say, well, it seems that there are some fans about the clean install action. So I think you get rid of those with some argument, and there are many positive things that probably many people learn about it. And so there are another tricky one, which is basically related with the plugin things, which is the question is how are plugin versions resolved when there is no version set? It seems that there is not, it is not used. It is not using the latest version by default.
No. So let me see. Let me figure it out. So for plugins that are already defined in the Super POM, there's always a version there. So I showed you briefly in the affected POM that the clean and jar resources and compiler do have a version, and these are defined right there. So that's the reason why you technically don't have to define a version when you redefine them in a POM for configuration. If you do really care about reproducible builds, and if you happen to, for some reason, you happen to switch from one version of Maven to other, it's really important that you define every version as possible for every plugin that is out there. So it's a good idea from time to time to generate the affected POM, figure out if there's any plugin out there that you have not explicitly defined a version for, and then do it and make it happen. For plugins that are known to Maven, that follow the -Maven plugin suffix, it may be the case that this one do check what is the latest release. But for other plugins that do not follow that approach, then you must explicitly define what is the version number, just like I did with the Echo plugin.
Okay. Okay. I think it's clear. So, by the way, all the people are just let me basically try to share my screen, because probably you will see all the people that are asking the questions and etc. So let me see here. So yeah, there are some questions around, is there any particular tip that we can use to improve the build time?
Yes, first stop using Maven CleanStall if you do. Try. No, seriously, try to gain the advantages of incremental builds, but that is not enough. The next thing that that you can look at is so you have to measure where is the build turning slow. Is it during compile time? Are you using a lot of annotation processors? For example, if you're using macro quarkles, you might have seen that completion time is longer, but execution development time is shorter. This is a compromise that these frameworks have applied in order to have a better development experience with hot reloading and whatnot. Maybe it's the test cases, the ones that are running slow. Maybe it's not all of them. So do those measurements. There are other projects that you may use in order to make these test cases faster. If you are using concurrency, or if you ever use thread.lib to check some timings in your test cases, don't use it anymore, please, and turn to a project called awaitility, awaitility.org. So reduce the time that it takes for your test cases. And once you do all the proper measurements, once you have made all your test cases as fast as you can, and if your build still is quite slow, and by slow I mean it takes more than 5 minutes, so less than 5 minutes is okay-ish. If you're doing a lot of CI/CD and taking a lot of pull requests, 5 minutes will still be slow. It depends on what you're trying to do. Then, and only then, if you are not a fan of Gradle, I will still encourage you to have a look at it, because Gradle will offer something that Maven does not have, which is local caching of inputs and outputs whenever a task is executed, and the local build cache.
Yeah. Okay. There are a lot of. Thank you, Andres, for all the answer. I think that you provide a lot of tips, and I think this question is really nice cover. So someone asked. Yeah, it seems that we should use BOMs everywhere, right? So it seems that is the recommended way. So why then majority of the libraries are still providing a BOM file?
Because it's not an all or nothing thing. BOM files make sense when you have something that has dependencies that should go together. So for a case of Micronaut and the other frameworks, they have a dependency that is for core, another for servlet, another for netty, and a few other things that need to go in hand, plus other dependencies. For example, there may be SLF4J, there may be Guava, whatever it is. If you happen to use that set of dependencies for those matched versions, then things should work okay. If you happen to use a different versions, things might break, and that's the whole reason to use BOM. These are the recommended versions. For a library such as, well, actually JUnit uses BOM files now because they have multiple dependencies that you can apply. But for a library that only has one jar, there's no point of having a BOM. It's just one dependency, and that is what it is, exactly.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. There's a few more questions. For example, can you briefly repeat which is the aim or the main use case then for aggregate POMs?
The main case is to build projects together. Now, typically, you see these projects as part of the same multi-project build. They are siblings, they share parents, they share group ID or artifact ID. But you do not have to follow that path. You can have this idea, what I call, well, it's not what I call, it's something that is coming from Gradle. It's called composite builds. That you can have two projects that have no direct relationship to one another, except that one is a dependency of the other. And you want to fix big bugs in this problem, in this project, but consuming from this one. Typically, what you have to do is push to a repository the fix so that the second project can consume it. But by putting an aggregator in between, now these two projects belong to the same multi-project build, and then both of them run in the same reactor. So the fixes that you do in this project can be seen quicker here by just using Maven verify or Maven test. You don't have to do an install in order to consume on this side.
Completely makes sense. So I think these question is already covered, and there are two more questions, two last questions. Basically, one is they ask you about if you do a new project in a JVM language, what build would you choose then?
It all depends. In my case, most of my projects, and because most of the times I work alone, I go with Gradle because I know Gradle very well, inside out, even though they still surprise me from time to time. Why? Because I get faster builds and I can apply other tricks that I'm still missing from Maven. If I'm working with a team that is comfortable with Maven, I will still use Maven. That's how it is. If it's, and it doesn't matter if it's the target language is Java, which most of the times it will be, or if it's Groovy or something else. If you were to build for another JVM language, say for example, Kotlin, it doesn't matter. Pick either of the two, depending on the features that you want. If it's a Scala, the Scala people will say use SVT. If it's Clojure, the Clojure people will tell you to use line again. Of course, you can use either Maven or Gradle for these things, but again, it depends on, is there a feature, a specific feature that particular build tool is giving you that is the deal breaker over the others? Is it the speed? Is it the number of plugins, the capabilities of the plugins? Is it the flexibility? Is it the maintainability? Or just because you want to use, not just because you want, because you're familiar or you're happy using a particular programming language as a DSL, whether it's a Scala, Kotlin, Groovy, or Clojure.
Yeah, I agree. So this is the last one. Thank you once again, Andres. Do you recommend to use Maven with the option -threads or -t? Do you know we can have any problems with using it?
-t, yeah, this is for running in parallel. Short answer is try it and measure. If your test cases are well isolated, likely running in parallel does not give you any trouble. If you have integration test cases running in parallel, and these integration test cases or functional test cases and dependent external resources, and most of the times they do, you might get into resource contention and you might get in trouble. Maybe there's deadlock, maybe something else. Sometimes running parallel tests with -t in Maven will show you that what you thought was isolated actually is not. So it might be a good idea to run it from time to time. And if no error appears, well, hopefully that continues to be the case. But if an error appears, well, now you know there's something that needs to be fixed.
Okay. It appears a new question. I think this is going to be the last one. We are going to end up here. So the last one is there is any goal. Imagine any goal that generate useful output, like the effective POM, for example. If you want to remove all Maven messages and only see this task output, how we can do that?
I think I didn't quite catch that one. So what do you want to see? Just the configuration of the output for a particular goal or task?
It seems that the question is related with a particular output, like the effective POM, and if you want to remove all Maven messages and only see particular task output.
Okay, I get it. So when I run effective POM, you saw there was the beginning of the build with this info messages or warning, whatever it is, and the content, and then finally, yes, I do believe that there is a way. That maybe there is another command, or maybe there's a parameter you can pass to effective POM to get the actual POM file as an additional file in your file system, so that you don't have to cat or pipe the output of the command to generate a file.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So thank you very much. The last thing now for the session, I think, is to be able to do the Kahoot. So we have about 40 people already connected. So let's see if we can do the last thing of the session. So let me see if I can run it. Yeah. I hope you are seeing my screen.
I do.
Okay. So where is the number? Here.
Okay, people, let's give it a try.
Yeah.
Kahoot.it, and the number is 4997718. So what's going to happen with the winners, Nacho? Tell us.
Yeah, sorry. What we want to do with the winners is basically we are going to give them an IntelliJ license.
There you go, people. You want to give it a try?
Yeah,
okay.
You have one.
You have one player. Wait, no more players. He might be able
I hope
win
so.
it.
Yeah, two.
Now we got two.
They're coming.
Great.
Hey, Antonio. Oh, all the people are using another IDE, so they don't want a license. I don't know.
or they like me, they use the command line.
Yeah, probably.
Welcome, Jabaloba.
Okay.
Oh boy, we had Batman. Be careful out there.
Let's have to wait another minute.
Well, so I hope that everybody has found this session interesting.
Yeah.
I bet that there were a few things that were new for some of you. Some, again, as I said earlier, some of the things were already well known. If you had any more questions, you can reach me out on Twitter. I think, well, my Twitter account is Almiray, so A for Andres Almiray for my last name. And or just go to andresalmiray.com and send me a message at any time. I'm just happy to help. I love open source and I love sharing.
I don't know, Andres, if you can see still my screen.
Yes.
But people here, too many people say thank you very much, and they will basically giving you the thank you for your presentation. There are a lot of questions that we try to answer and using Slido, and so basically let's try to do a Kahoot then. We have about 20 people.
Okay.
Yep. Here we go.
Here we go.
Where's the dependency management block valid? I think I have it. Only 6 people answer.
Come on, people, don't you want a license?
Probably
This is fun. Whoops.
all of them.
We got one winner.
Yeah. Oh, guys, you have to stay more clear. Let's continue. Dijan is at the end the winner right now.
Okay.
Here we go. Oh, I think I have a good answer for that. Oh yes, I have it. It's a problem.
This is an easy one.
Yes, I think so. Hey, 5 people say there's basically more things that they require, but also yes, other people answer many other interesting things. So
Yeah, pretty much everything here is correct.
Yeah.
Don't use Maven to install, please.
yeah, and yeah, still Dejan is the winner. Let's see if the last one who is gonna win. I think bacon is the good one.
Yeah,
What do you think?
it has to be, right?
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
Okay.
Oh, come on.
No way. Who said ban of models?
Well, I didn't. I actually just talked about BOMs. I didn't mention it for a reason because I was waiting for this. But I would have expected that at least someone would know. It actually stands for bill of materials, and this is for those non-native speakers, not native English speakers like myself. Bill of materials is kind of like a checklist.
So yeah.
So the idea of a BOM is a checklist of dependencies that can be applied.
Yeah. So yeah, finally the winner. Oh, I forgot to share my screen. Let me see it again.
Yeah, let's see that. Who's the winner?
So Dijan finally wins. Give us please, Dijan, your nickname or give us a shot, and we will give you the intelligent license. Okay.
Congratulations. Thank you everybody again for joining and playing and staying for a bit more than an hour of me rambling about Maven. If you are local to Barcelona, we're very, very happy to join you at some point whenever we're able to travel again. And stay close with Nacho and Jonathan and everybody else that is organizer for Juke Barcelona when we have more events like this. And if you are not local to Barcelona, then again, as long as we continue to have these virtual events, I guess you're more than welcome to join. And whenever we're again able to travel, if we are able to travel in September, JBC and Conf.
Yeah.
Don't forget about it.
Thank you very much, Ander, for your time, and thank you for this presentation.
Thank you, everybody.
See you.
Goodbye.